So you want a fitness watch and you're trying to decide between an Apple Watch or a Samsung or Google Watch and a Garmin. So Garmin makes some of the best fitness trackers on the market. Now I just posted a video where I reviewed this Garmin Fenix 7 Sapphire Solar Edition, and in this video I'm going to do a comparison between this watch and an Apple Watch. So this Apple Watch I actually got from my son. He got it for Christmas and decided he didn't want it, and so I bought it off of him. I think he didn't want it because he had broken my wife's. He had to use it for a mile run for high school, and when he was putting it on his wrist, he dropped it. And I'm going to talk about that when I talk about the Apple Watch versus the Garmin, among a whole bunch of other topics. So let's get into it. So what I'm going to do is really just talk about the advantages of each one. Now, both of these watches can do so much, and so really I'm going to approach it from my standpoint. I'm a mountain biker, I'm a gravel cyclist, I do kayaking, skiing, hiking, walking, and of course use the watch on a daily basis. All right, let's get into the advantages of the Garmin. Now, based on the story that I just told you, the Garmin is a more durable watch. It's got this sapphire screen, and I've had also a Vivo Active 4, and I had that thing on my wrist for 3 years, and I don't think there's any significant scratch at all. I have a feeling if I drop this, and I'm not going to drop it and test it, but if I dropped it, I have a feeling it would do just fine. My daughter got an Apple Watch for Christmas. She dropped it from about 2 feet up, cracked the screen. So if I were going to use an Apple Watch on a daily basis, I would have a cover. So I do have a cover on this Apple Watch SE, and it protects the screen. So if you drop it, it's hopefully not going to break the screen. I just think that the Apple Watches are not very durable based on my family's experience. So durability is one big advantage of a Garmin watch. Also, the fact that the Garmin watches are waterproof up to, I think it's 100 meters. I'll put it on the screen. The Apple Watch, so Apple says on their website that the watches are water resistant up to 50 meters, but they have a disclaimer on their website, and they say water resistance is not a permanent condition and can diminish over time. That gives me concern. So I don't really swim much with an Apple Watch. I don't shower with it for one reason being that water gets underneath this screen protector, I should say. So I have to take the screen protector off, and it's not super easy to get off, and I can't even do it with it off my wrist. And so every time I get, so there's the screen protector. Every time I get the watch wet, I have to take this off and dry out the water underneath it. And so with the Garmin watch, I can just keep it on my wrist pretty much all the time, except for when I need to charge it, whether I'm swimming, showering, whatever. I just don't do that with the Apple Watch. I know you can swim with it, and you probably find swimming, probably find showering if you didn't use a screen protector. But like I said, I wouldn't wear an Apple Watch as active as I am without a screen protector. All right, let's go on. The Garmin also has a continuous heart rate monitor. Now, I don't know about some of the higher end Apple Watches, maybe you can, but the Apple Watch heart rate monitor doesn't really come on until you have an activity going, or if you just look at your heart rate, like open up the app. Whereas the Garmin watch, the heart rate monitoring is continuous. And so that's a really nice feature because it's always tracking, you know, how your recovery is and things like that, which I'll get into. And so continuous heart rate, that's an advantage of the Garmin. I also like the always-on display. Now, some of the Apple Watches do have an always-on display, but it does drain down the battery. This one has the transflective display. So like I said, this is the Fenix 7. You can get the Epix, and the Epix has an AMOLED display, kind of like the Apple Watch, but this Fenix 7 will have a transflective display, and it's always on with very little battery drain. If you have to look at it in a dark room, you do have to touch the screen or tap the flashlight button. But I like the fact that it's always on. Now, also the Garmin watch is much more visible in the sun. It's because of that transflective display. I also really like the Garmin app. It is, to me, focused on people who work out. The data, I'm not really going to show it in this video. I did show it some in my Fenix 7 review if you want to watch that. But The app is, like I said, really tailored for people who work out. And I have other Garmin devices. I've got, an Edge 840, 830, 1030 bike computers. And so I can see all that together in one app. And my ride, when I use a power meter, a heart rate monitor, other sensors, it brings it all together in the app, and it's just a ton of very useful data. Now, I mentioned the sensors. That's another huge advantage of Garmin is the sensors. So I use a radar, I use a speed sensor, as I mentioned, the power meter, the heart rate monitor. So those sensors are super valuable for cycling. Now, if you don't bike, if you just use it for hiking or running or things like that, then it may not apply to you. But if you're a cyclist, that's a huge advantage. Another huge advantage is this one becomes a bike computer, and you can put it in a mount just by taking off the straps. So there's a little quick release in the back. It becomes a bike computer that you can just mount on a handlebar. And you cannot really do that with the Apple Watch. And the bands, by the way, are much more difficult to take on and off on the Apple Watch, I've found. Now, maybe if I did it a bunch, I'd get used to it, but the Garmin, and the bands go on even easier. So all you have to do is just press those on, they snap back on. Specific to some of them is they have solar edition. So like I said, this is the Fenix 7 Solar, and so there is a solar panel around the outside, and it extends the battery life. Doesn't really, charge the watch much. It just extends the battery life when you're using it, but that's very useful. So now, battery life, that is another huge, huge advantage of a Garmin watch. If I didn't use this as a fitness tracker, I could probably go about 3 weeks on one charge. As I mentioned in another video, Apple measures their charge in hours. Garmin measures their charge in days. Even as a fitness tracker, if I'm using this for 3-4 rides during the week, I can still go a week without charging the watch. And so that is also a really major advantage of the Garmin watch. And it's got more accurate GPS data. It just uses a better technology. I won't really go into it. And then more detailed maps. So that's my advantage list. Let's go over the advantages of the Apple Watch, because there are definitely some advantages. So I'll first of all just kind of summarize it by saying, on a day-to-day basis, like you're at your home, you're at your office, the Apple Watch is really nice because of these reasons. First of all, you can text through it. Now the Garmin watch, you can get text messages, and if you have an Android phone, you can respond with a CAN message, but you cannot, do a custom text. You can read them, you can clear them, cannot send custom messages like you can through the Apple Watch. Phone calls, same way. I can see a phone call coming through on my Garmin watch. I can, if I want to, stop an activity and, or pull over and answer the call if it's someone that's important, then I can do that. I can tap the answer button and it will pick it up on my phone, but I cannot talk through the Garmin watch, whereas of course the Apple Watch or Samsung or Google Watch, you can actually talk through it, which can be very handy. Like if I'm working in the garage and my phone's over here and someone calls me, I can just answer and just talk while I'm working. So that's very handy. So basically the Apple Watch is kind of like a mini phone on your wrist. Now another advantage of the Apple Watch is you can get the cellular service model. Now you have to pay, like Verizon's, I don't know, $15 a month. So I don't do that. I probably never will, because I always have my phone with me. But if you want to just head out for a ride, workout, and not have to bring your phone, but still be able to have music and text and all that, that's a really big advantage of the Apple Watch. Let's also talk about some of the apps that I've found really useful on the Apple Watch. Probably the biggest one is the camera remote. I like using the back camera on my iPhone. And so being able to put the watch on the back and see yourself and frame the shot, really, really useful app that I've used several times, and I really like it. As far as fitness tracking, if I were going to track workouts on the Apple Watch, I'd probably use the Strava app. The Apple Fitness Tracker is good. To me, it's just not as robust as the Strava app. Now, another advantage that I find with the Apple Watch is being able to talk through it. So in other words, I don't mean taking phone calls. I mean asking Siri to, set a reminder. I use that all the time. Also being able to set a timer. So I can say, hey Siri, set a timer for 10 minutes. I can do that on the watch. So very easy. I can, ask questions. I can initiate a phone call. I can initiate a text, all that through that. And I really like the Apple Watch SE where you can just kind of hold it up. And as soon as you pick it up, you don't even have to say the, hey Siri buzzword. Now my phone's going to start asking or listening to me. But you don't even have to say that. You just hold it up and say, set a reminder for, whatever. I set reminders all the time. Now, even though the watch bands are harder to take on and off, you do have a lot more options. So I don't really care about changing watch bands. I find one that I like and I stick with it. But if you wanted to change your watch bands all the time, you've just got more options. Now, the Garmin watches, they do have some really nice watch bands. And like the Apple Watch, there are some that are more expensive than you possibly could imagine for a watch band. So you got options, you just got more options with an Apple Watch. And the last advantage I'll list in this video for the Apple Watch is the range is just better, probably like twice as far. And that's really useful like when I lose my phone and I got to find it. You can do that through the Garmin, you can do it through the Apple Watch, but the range is better, and so that's an advantage. Now, I will say one thing about talking through the watch or using it, for doing apps and things like that. I find that holding your hand up for more than about a minute, your shoulder gets sore. So, the thing with the Apple Watch is I have my phone with me all the time. And so I've found myself using the apps and things like that on the watch a whole lot less than I thought I would. Like I said, I'm not the kind of person that would pay for the cellular service and go without the phone. I'm always going to have my phone nearby. Now, I will say, for my personal use for mountain biking, the thing that I like the best about the Apple Watch for taking phone calls and texts is if I have my phone in a hydration pack. Now, if it's in my jersey, like a road jersey pocket, I would rather just pick out the phone and use the phone. But if it's tucked away in like a hydration pack or maybe in a zippered pocket, it's nice to be able to just use the watch and not have to dig the phone out of a pack. So which one would I choose? That's the question, right? I would choose the Garmin. In fact, this one stays on my wrist most of the time, and I really don't use the Apple Watch very much. Like I said, I'd rather use my phone, and so I'm going to probably be selling this. Here is a summary of the main things I love about the Garmin and why I choose it. Pairing with my Garmin bike sensors, less frequent charging, durability, the app. I love the sleep score. I love being able to see all my workouts in the app. I just think the Garmin app is excellent. Another thing is accessing the flashlight. I didn't mention that. The Garmin and the Apple Watch have a sleep mode, and so the screen dims. The Garmin Watch, the screen, you cannot touch it to turn on the flashlight, which is great when you're sleeping next to your wife and you don't want to wake her up. But I can access the flashlight on the Garmin Watch very easily by double tapping this button. But on the Apple Watch, when it goes into the sleep mode, it's much more difficult to access the flashlight. And if you're a properly hydrated athlete, you should be getting up once in the middle of the night at least to go to the bathroom. As I mentioned, the always on display and easier to see in the sun. And then the fact that the Garmin Watch can be mounted on the handlebars as a bike computer. To me, it's a game changer to have just one device to do everything. So yeah, that's again my experience of using both of these. Hopefully the things that I've said in this video are helpful. Now, if you're a cyclist, here's something that you can do is you can have a Garmin bike computer and then an Apple Watch, and both of those together are probably going to be less than like a Fenix 7. Now, that is only an advantage if you just use your watch as a bike computer. If you're using it for kayaking and running and skiing and just all the activities, then, it's hard to beat the Garmin watch. They're just so good as a bike computer and so much more. So again, hope this video helped you out. If you have any questions or comments, drop those below. Thanks for watching.